Within the legislative body of a nation which claims to be a democracy, if its elected public servants seek to place the interests of another nation ahead of the interests of the citizens who elected them, in times of conflict, this could amount to treason. For as Marcus Cicero warned, a nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. It cannot be said too often or too loudly, the interests of a nation's own citizens must come first. So what is this all about?
I would like to first of all thank you for establishing the Friends of Israel in Western Australia. Organizations like yours are especially crucial at this time when our enemies are attempting to delegitimize our basic rights to exist and threatening to destroy us as well as the rest of Western civilizations.
Goodness gracious, when I thought it was Israel that was trying to destroy the Palestinians while attempting to make the rest of us go along with their outrageous behavior.
We left Rafah and headed northeast along the rubble and debris-strewn roads towards an area called Qazar. They came straight in here, and these are the tank tracks. When they arrived here, they got first to a village called Al-Najah. This is it, and this is what they did. More than 20 people died here, including a woman, locals told me, shot dead while waving a white flag. Zaytun, a few miles north, also flattened by Israeli bulldozers. But in this house, they'd herded 100 members of the Samuni clan, and then they shelled it, killing 49 of them.
Jonathan Miller's moving report is noteworthy because the truth about Israel's actions against the Palestinians is so rarely told, and told so well. How could anyone seeing it want to be a friend of Israel? Now compare that report with this summing up of Israel's murderous attack on the Mavi Marmara.
At the end of the day, the bid to break the naval blockade wasn't really about bringing aid to Gaza. It was a political move designed to put pressure on Israel and the international community.
Talking of pressure, one cannot help but wonder if Jane Corbyn's husband, John Craddock Maples, former Member of Parliament, President of Conservative Friends of Israel, brought any pressure to bear on how his wife approached the making of this publicly funded yet appallingly unbalanced BBC documentary. Recently, political pressure has been brought to bear against a trade unionist for attempting to express his views about the events of 9/11 on Australia's publicly funded broadcaster, the ABC. Josh Frydenberg, Australia's first ever Jewish Liberal Member of Parliament, had this to say.
I refer to the comments of Kevin Bracken, President of the Victorian Trades Hall Council and member of the Port Melbourne branch of the Labor Party, that in relation to the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Centre on September the 11th, 2001, and I quote, "I believe the official story is a conspiracy theory that doesn't stand up to scientific scrutiny." If the Prime Minister finds these comments as offensive as most right-thinking Australians, what action will the Prime Minister take to discipline Mr Bracken and send a message to others that such remarks are unacceptable?
They may have been unacceptable to him, but 3/4 of the Australians who responded to a poll following the broadcast found Kevin Bracken's statement reasonable. But of course, they may not have been right-thinking Australians. That is, Australians who think the same way as Josh Frydenberg and John Fain. For it was John Fain who started this particular censorship ball rolling.
Which version of the conspiracy theories do you subscribe to for the alternative?
Well,
are you saying that the Israelis engineered it, or do you believe that there's the Bilderberg group, or which version of the Nutter conspiracies is the one you subscribe to?
It is clear that John Fain is well aware of the widespread suspicions about Israel's involvement in 9/11, and this typical excerpt from his vitriolic attack on Kevin Bracken demonstrates that he is determined that a new investigation should not be launched.
I'm the President of the Victorian Trades Hall Council, and we've taken resolutions from both.
I think it reflects very poorly on your members, Kevin, that you have views that are so ridiculous, so extreme and so unacceptable, because this is the lunatic fringe, this is the extreme right.
And on he went, and his views seem to be shared by Australia's Prime Minister.
Obviously, I don't agree with the remarks. Obviously, they are stupid and wrong. I think the member was in the House yesterday when I gave my Prime Minister's statement on Afghanistan. I would refer him to that. That is my view, obviously.
And on she went, which pleased the honourable member for Kooyong, the Friends of Israel and Tel Aviv, no doubt. But how many right-thinking Australians will it please? Certainly not those who noticed that she gave no reasons for calling Kevin Bracken's opinions stupid and wrong. She just echoed John Fain's dismissal of them, only a matter of hours after they were first broadcast. But had she asked, her staff may have discovered that NIST has been suppressing a video during which an explosion can be clearly heard just before WTC-7 collapses into its own footprint. Listen carefully. Obviously, a video crew were waiting for something to happen and can be heard chatting, which is why they didn't seem to react to the low-frequency explosion. Then one of them does react as the building begins to fall. By suppressing the higher frequencies in the soundtrack, the explosion becomes clearer, and you can see that nothing has been added. The shaded area of the waveform is what has been subtracted. Now, even Prime Ministers, Members of Parliament and radio chat show hosts should be able to see that this was indeed a controlled demolition, pre-rigged weeks before 9/11. To fit into the hijacked planes knocked down huge buildings legend, WTC-7 must have been the intended target of the plane which was almost certainly shot down by a military pilot who ignored the NORAD stand-down.
Or the people who attacked the United States in New York, shot down the plane over Pennsylvania and attacked the Pentagon.
Of course, the official story does not include terrorists shooting down a plane. They were supposed to be inside them. But Larry Silverstein seems to have had the same problem, keeping his story straight.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Larry Silverstein has since denied that he meant, go ahead, demolish the building. But in the context, what else could pull it mean? And the science proves that it was pulled.
The acceleration of gravity for New York City is 9.802 meters per second squared. So the measured acceleration is within 1% of the acceleration of gravity. The acceleration of the building is indistinguishable from freefall.
So if WTC-7 was pre-rigged for demolition, what about the Twin Towers?
Almost an hour after the plane hit, molten metal was seen coming out of the northeast corner near the 80th floor. The red-yellow metal poured from the tower along with a shower of sparks, and looked like steel in a foundry. And there were many eyewitnesses that described molten steel.
You'd get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails.
The so-called 5 dancing Israelis, arrested on 9/11 having been seen dancing, laughing and high-fiving as the towers collapsed, provide yet more evidence that there was pre-knowledge of the attacks.
And at that point we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event. The
5 Israelis were detained for 10 weeks and finally deported on immigration violations after the FBI cleared them of any involvement in 9/11.
Listen again to the tone of that government handout mainstream media lackey.
After the FBI cleared them of any involvement in 9/11.
No wonder Mr. Wolfowitz looked so pleased, because the dancing Israelis did not need to be mentioned in the report, and the collapse of WTC-7 wasn't mentioned either. The NTSB didn't bother to forensically identify the aircraft remains, and the serial numbers of their flight data recorders are still being withheld. As for the missing Pentagon surveillance videos, they are still missing. Other glaring omissions relate to the information which could have been obtained from some of the 50 or so videos of the plane which hit the South Tower. But thanks to an independent Canadian researcher, Jeff Hill, we know how Park Foreman got his famous shot.
I was standing on top of a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. My neighbor was standing right next to me, and we were just watching, and I'm looking through the camera lens, and he says, what the is that? and I panned the camera to the left and picked up that plane.
Few researchers think that this plane was United Airlines Flight 175, and this engine has never been forensically identified. The planes were murder weapons, but along with many other important pieces of evidence, it was dumped in a landfill on Staten Island. And it is a travesty that this video was not examined and these vital questions asked. Who shot the video? How did it get to WABC New York or CBS? But most intriguingly, how did the person who shot it know where to point the camera? Several groups of men were seen setting up cameras across the Hudson before the planes hit the towers. Witnesses reported they saw some men jumping for joy in Liberty State Park after the North Tower impact. But one camera crew were less public about it, for they seem to have found a very discreet camera position in order to document the event, with an excellent landmark to help with plane spotting. Unlike the park foreman shot, this looks like waiting for the event to happen. Without the landmark, the operator has nothing to line up on, so the camera's direction could be way off. The plane pulled out of its dive above the Statue of Liberty, and having the camera pointing over Ellis Island was the ideal place to pick it up and follow it on the last 8,000 feet of its murderous journey. Using Google Street View, I was able to identify the camera position. The wall in the foreground of the video is this wall, and the camera operator stood on this surface, a flat, sloping roof. There doesn't appear to be any easy access, only trapdoors or skylights, so it looks as though it was chosen because it was the right place to get the shot, not because it was casually convenient. It is now widely accepted that even experienced pilots would have had difficulty hitting the towers with such accuracy, and that the planes were almost certainly remotely directed under computer control. So the plane's flight path would have been known to those who were there to document the event. It has been obvious for many years, far beyond any reasonable doubt, that blatant lies have been told about 9/11. The event which led to Australia being drawn into two murderous conflicts, and the fact that these public servants continue to embrace the official story either demonstrates a level of ignorance almost beyond belief, or something far worse. Given his disdainful attitude towards Kevin Bracken,
I look forward to our debate, John.
There's nothing to debate, Kevin.
I think it quite reasonable to suggest that John Fain knows far more than he is telling, and perhaps his association with Mark Regev should be taken into account. Here's Regev lying about Israel's use of white phosphorus in Gaza.
We're very clear about that. We don't use any weapons whatsoever that are prohibited under international law.
Not true. White phosphorus is specifically prohibited in air attacks against military forces in civilian areas. One cannot help but wonder what influences the Prime Minister may be under.
Obviously, I don't agree with the remarks. Obviously, they are stupid and wrong.
But this video and millions of web pages say that Kevin Bracken is neither stupid nor wrong. So is the Prime Minister alarmingly uninformed, or is she putting the interests of another nation first? There is no doubt that the increasing number of Israeli propaganda organizations in many countries, as well as lobby groups such as AIPAC in the United States, are exerting a disproportionate influence on the way our world is being run. And they are all financed, one way or another, out of the $3 billion given to Israel by American taxpayers every year. A self-perpetuating gift beyond comprehension. A gift which has also financed the internationally condemned apartheid wall and the illegal settlements. But Israel does not take condemnation lightly. Its invariable reaction is to go on the offensive, and now it wants to add Iran to the list of targets it has already coerced America and others into attacking on its behalf. Yet the most dangerous, deceitful, and destructive nation on earth is nuclear apartheid Israel itself. There are only two basic reasons to be friends with Israel: arcane superstitious beliefs or for personal gain. So let's get behind this quietly outspoken trade union leader, because for citizens of the land down under, the choice is blindingly simple. Do we want to be governed from Canberra or from Tel Aviv? A message for Aussies. Please try to get this video widely distributed. Pressure the ABC into broadcasting it in the interests of balance, if they actually know what the word means.